Okay, perfect. So here's my lovely model. As you can see, she kind of has some pieces that really could use a haircut here, so we're gonna give it to her. I think, as most people can probably relate to, typically when you're working with really curly hair, their number one concern is how much length they're going to use. Not everyone is going to be looking for a really drastic change. They might just be looking for a really good shaping. So it's something that we want to be mindful of. So one of the first things that I do is I have clients come in with how they typically wear their hairstyle. So I get a really good feel of what it can look like with what they currently do with it. So also I can help coach them when they leave here. And then secondly, I wash them and I get them prepped. So one of my favorite things to use while I'm prepping curly hair is the Lanza Curl Restore. So this is an awesome product because it keeps the hair really moist and bouncy during the cutting service. So I've gone through section by section, but I'm going to show you a couple of sections here and how I do it. So this is going to help naturally clump the hair, which is going to be pretty important. So I put a little on my hands. As you can see, it's giving me a nice sheen here. And then I'm going to start to softly pat this through. So I'm not necessarily looking to like separate or bunch or make a ton of different like movement. I'm actually looking to encourage the clumping. Now I will tell you what I did do was I used a wide tooth comb to comb through it. So a lot of times you might see some heavy tightness or some areas that are a little harder to get through, and we want to make sure that we can do that. So I've used a wide tooth comb to prep this. And now I'm going through with my Curl Restore. So this is my Curl Restore that's going to keep tons of moisture in the hair as I am working through it. So I'm clumping this together. And I don't have to use a ton, but as you can see here, it's creating this nice sheen. I'm getting this really great separation in some of these curls here. Now, one thing to note that I think is really important when I'm working with this type of texture or this type of curl is you're not going to see me make any really harsh lines or really come through with a comb and section it. So that's because I want to encourage this curl clumping that we're seeing. And actually, what I always say with curls is it's more of an intuitive process, and we're going to be working more with how that hair starts to clump and where we start to see that shape. So I'm going to do my best to stand out of your way while I cut. Know that it's always going to be best if you cut standing in front of your section. So this is just a demo area that I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to start this cut. So I am going to lean her head forward so I have exposure of this neck area. Also, it's going to create stretch from the occipital bone to the neck. It's why a lot of times with hair cutting, we dump the head forward so we can see like almost what we call like the garbage of cutting out that extra underneath. So I'm going to start with her head forward, and that's going to give me a little bit of length through that occipital bone in the neck. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to intuitively pick up some of these curl clumps, and I'm going to see how they're starting to clump. And what I want to do is I'm going to flip my shears towards me. Okay, so I'm going to push my wrist out, and I'm flipping my shears towards me, and I'm going to slither down. So if it's important that we're not pulling a lot of this, that we're giving light tension, because if we pull too much, we're going to spring all the way up. So I just want a little light tension, and I'm going to start my stacking around here. So sometimes we have to come in and just cut those little BBs to really catch up. As you can see, I'm going to have a really strong line here. So I'm coming into my next curl next to it, doing the same thing, encouraging that curl clumping, pushing my wrist out, and then sliding this section down. So I'm going to be watching the comments. Can anyone tell me why it's important that I push my wrist out? I'll give you a few seconds if you guys want to chime in on why you think it's important instead of just coming in like this and pushing my wrist out is more important. Can anybody give me a guess? There's going to be no wrong guesses here, just encouraging people to participate in this live here. I'm going to continue to cut this perimeter here and then give you guys just a few seconds to really chime in and see if you guys have any idea on why I would go ahead and push my wrist out while coming in to cut these sections. Okay, it doesn't look like I have any brave souls out there right now that are chiming in. But the reason being is this is going to be ergonomically correct for your wrist here. So instead of creating tension or twist that's going to be really hard over time, you're pushing that joint out and pushing those muscles out as to preserve your body. So honestly, cutting curls for me is going to take longer than cutting other haircuts, which I'm totally fine with. Because again, what we're doing is we're working out on an intuitive basis. Everything needs to be worked to its curl clumping. Now, there's a lot of different ways to cut hair. And there's a lot of different ways to cut curly hair. This is a way that works really well for me and for my clients. Like I said, I have about 80% of my clientele that has some sort of open wave or curl or texture in it. So this is something that has really worked for me. Again, this is going to be perfect for the clientele that doesn't look to wear their hair straight but wants to encourage their hair to be curly quite often. And I'm intuitively coming in, watching where my baseline is, going with that curl separation and that curl clumping. So this one's separated out naturally, which means it wants to go next to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and allow it. I'm coming in, pushing my wrist out, sliding that section. So also by coming in and sliding down, another thing happens. So I'm actually creating a little bit of length, which is going to help with the stacking or the roundness that we're going to see. So I'm going to continue to this next section. What I love about this is my guide is already there for me. It's a very visual experience. Like this curl, this is not as tight. So I'm actually going to come in here and make this just a little bit shorter. And that's the beauty about curls too, and doing this technique is honestly, curls aren't, I think most people will tell you that curls are not always consistent, right? So even though I would say her curls are mostly pretty consistent, we are still working with, you know, how some can be straighter, some can be tighter. I have a client, and actually in the crown area of her hair, her curls are tightest. And so I'm not going to try and pull that straight and get a different result in my, I'm going to create this shape to really work with that. So we're going to maintain some of her length down here while creating a roundness or a shape. So my next section, I kind of put this in two sections. So I did from the crown forward and the back forward, mostly because I had like a little fringe that we're going to be working with. If we have the time to get there, it's crazy how much time passes so quickly when I get to hang out with you guys. But as I continue on to each section, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm not going to use a clip. I'm going to use my finger, and then the hair is going to naturally sort of drop, again, because I did go through each section of hair with the Curl Restore. So that's like our mask almost. And this is a really great leave-in product that's going to help with styling. Beware, your fingers can be a little slippery while working with that. So I'm just going to get that out of my way. I am going to reapply just a small amount just to make sure that my hands are still in good working order for working with these curls. One thing that I always try to remind myself, my clients, and everyone else of is if there's fuzz or any sort of frizz in the hair now while it's wet, you're definitely going to be seeing it while it's dry. So if you're looking to avoid that or avoid most of it, then be mindful the hair needs to be soaking wet. So re-dampening that section, making sure you're adding plenty of product in while you're working through it. Again, I brushed through with the wide tooth comb. This encouraged the clumping that we're seeing here, and I worked my Curl Restore from Lanza Healing Curls. So this has a vegan butter in it, which makes the hair so soft, and again encourages this clumping. So I already have my baseline here. I'm going to come through, really soften that. I can see that these curls still want to clump together. So I'm going to come in, push my wrist out, and I'm going to slide down. And what we're going to start to see is this beautiful shape and this beautiful weight that's created. So I'm going to continue on each section. Again, if I pull too tight, I'm going to have a lot of shrinking. So I'm going to gently lay it just on the top of my hand here, push my hand out, and then cut, sliding down. So just little tiny pinches, open and close. And this is creating this beautiful weight line that we see here. Again, this is creating a bespoke haircut or something that's really personalized to these types of curls, because curls don't often curl in exactly the same pattern in exactly the same way. And so by doing it with this method, I'm able to encourage the curls to naturally do what they want to do. And you know, usually this is replicated pretty easily with a lot of these styles too. So again, I asked my client to come in with their hairstyle to how they normally do it. So maybe they let it air dry, maybe they diffuse it, maybe they add product, maybe they don't. And then we go over what their goal is, and then we come up with an action plan that is really gonna suit them. And then we can bring out this natural shape or this natural texture. So as we start to move up, we are still below the occipital bone, so I'm going to continue to have her head, dumped just slightly forward. These pieces are just a little bit long over here. This wants to separate into two over here, so I'm going to go ahead and let it. I'm sliding this section down, and then I'm not allowing myself to work past the ear forward. So this naturally wants to separate. That's going to be almost a different weight line on a different sphere here. So instead of if we pulled this back to meet it, we would actually be creating length, which is good sometimes. Sometimes we want to do that. But here I actually want to keep it, and we're going to work in a different section. So all this falling forward, it naturally just created a split in the hair, which typically happens with a curl pattern. So I'm going to stay away from that. That's going to be my cue. Hey, stay away from that area, and we'll cut that in a different segment. So here, I'm going to go ahead and smooth that out. I can see it wants to separate into two separate sections. And I'm going to come in and push my wrist out and slide that forward. So again, we can start to see that graduation or that stacking that we're seeing in this section. I'm turning her head. Again, I would encourage everyone to stand in front of their work. I'm not doing that right now simply so you can see. You can see the curl pattern here. I always like to put my hand behind it so I get a clear view of what I'm cutting. Again, I like to smooth it down with that curl cream in there because it shows me that it wants to clump. This piece wants to go here, which is my separation point. So I'm going to come in and slide this through. So my lowest length is still down here, and we're creating that shape and that roundness. Let's go ahead and pull our next section down. And we're going to continue to use our fingers, right? Because the most important thing here isn't necessarily that we have, you know, the most perfectly straight section, because curly hair is going to do something different. Like this texture, it's saying, hey, this is how we clump. Like try and put us in a smooth line. Look at that pattern. If you try to put that in a smooth line, you're going to create a lot more frizz in this section, which won't encourage the hair to clump the way it naturally wants to. And it's going to defeat the purpose of doing this curly cut because you're going to have less shape to it. So I'm going to use, again, my Curl Restore. Just slight bit on my fingers. The hair's still soaking wet. Smooth it down. And you can see how that clumping comes out. So obviously, as you begin to work through each section, you're going to notice that you're going to get a lot quicker because those curls are going to clump so much nicer, and you're going to start to see that stacking. So again, right here, I am beginning to elevate. So this, now I'm starting to see we're at the occipital bone range. I have tilted her head back up just slightly, and I'm going to begin to elevate, which means I'm just gently taking my hand, putting it at a low 45, and I'm going to encourage the curl to sit a little bit higher, and then I'm going to cut it. Again, because I'm looking to build that weight line, not to continue to make it totally round. I'm looking more to start that stacking process here. So I'm going to come in and cut, and visually I'll be able to see exactly where these curls want to sit, which gives me a really good clue on my guide, right? So it's not a traditional guide that you're taking with you, you know, you're just eyeballing this guide. Again, this is a way to cut curly hair. It's one that's been successful for me. If you want to give it a try, I'd love to see how it turns out for you guys. This has been super awesome for me and for my clients. It's given them a more bespoke or haircut that's actually caters to their curls and their texture a lot more than just trying to cut it like any other hair. So again, we're seeing that stacking. We're coming in and we're cutting these pieces to meet up with where our last segment was, right? So I see the curl here. Again, I've got that slight elevation as I come in and I slide that cut down, therefore creating that weight line. I'm not quite to my point where it wants to separate out, so I'm going to continue to work on this side. Let's see, so this piece really wants to section out into 2 clumps, and as you can see, not all clumping is going to be like absolutely perfect, right? Like it doesn't all like create this perfect coil. That's okay. This is like normal texture for curly hair, you know? But I can see that I elevate that and I cut it exactly where it lays. So I'm already loving this shape that we're seeing here, but I'm already 18 minutes through with you guys. And so I want to come to the fringe area and sort of talk about that area. We're going to continue to cut this hair in the same manner. So the things that you want to be mindful of as we continue to work through this is when we come to the side, so we're going to look at from head on, we want to create our baseline pretty sturdy, and then we'll begin our shape, which will meet up with our weight line that's in the back. I want it to be a little bit more triangular with like a soft nick on that side here. So I'm not looking to create a ton of weight up here, but she does have a fringe, which means I do want to create some stacking in here. So it'll be a little bit more when it dries like this, right? So it's creating more shape. We're looking to create shape with this hair. So I've already begun my baseline. I always like to start the fringe just a little bit shorter on the underneath section because that's gonna help create stacking, right? So we've got a little bit shorter, then we got something a little bit longer, which means it's not such a heavy weight line. It won't feel so intense or so dense as we work on that. And then, like I said, I did take a section from the crown forward and I've sectioned that off. And then I had from the crown back, I had it in a section that we were working in that back section there. So I'm just gonna tilt her slightly forward so you can see. I'm gonna just gently move my finger through and see what section it wants to take me to, you know? Let the hair tell you. This is really an intuitive type of cutting. You know, again, we're not looking to necessarily look for the straightest or smoothest line because that's going to discourage the curls from clumping the way that they need to. I'm going to use a little of my curl, I'm going to use a little of my Healing Curls, my Curl Restore. Again, this is a light lotiony texture that is really great if you're just styling the hair as well. So I'm going to encourage this clumping. The hair is still soaking wet. When the hair is soaking wet, it encourages the clumping, but also it keeps that frizz at bay, which means I'm not separating those curls out and defeating the purpose of what we're trying to achieve here with this curly cut. So I'm going to come through. I've got her head tilted just slightly forward. This is going to help me create more of that shape that I was looking for. So this is clumping into 2 clumps. Can you see that? So I'm going to go ahead and cut one of them at a time. I'm going to give myself a slight elevation and I'm going to cut further out than I think that I need to. Again, our goal is to not necessarily put tension on here because we're going to get a spring action. And remember, typically with hair cutting bangs or cutting any fringe, what I like to do is I like to take this comb, I like to lay it on the flat of the head, and where that ends is actually typically where my section is going to be complete. But this is a little bit different. When you're working with curls, I usually like to extend past that area. So I'm going to extend past what I just showed you and encourage more of that flow to come forward because again, we're looking for more shape up here and then we can build it from the sides. We can also build it from the back. And again, what I love about cutting curly hair or textured hair is that we're actually going to see that stacking. We're going to see that shape take place as we work through that section. So I've got my curl clump. I'm going to slightly elevate it out. I'm not keeping any tension. That's why you're seeing it on the palm of my hand. I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut just slightly below where you would think that I need to. So this, see how that came out the perfect length there? Now I've got this piece over here that wants to sit right in here, slightly elevating this out, coming in, pushing my wrist out to preserve my wrist, and sliding this down here. So by sliding it too, I'm helping to create that stacking naturally that's going to be created in the hair, like we were talking about that we want with this fringe. So some of the sections are just a little bit smaller. That's good. We want that. Again, you can already start to see how that's shaping up super nicely. I'm coming in curl by curl. This is a bespoke or an intuitive haircut that we're giving for these curls, so we can really start to see how that shape comes forward given the texture of the hair and not just the hair or head shape itself. The texture is something entirely different that we need to consider when we're working through. So tilting her up, I can start to see that shape is so, so gorgeous that I'm loving. Again, you'll notice that the hair starts to separate out exactly where it needs to. So it's pretty awesome to see that. So I'm just gonna come in. Again, it looks like this wants to clump into more than one. I'm just gonna allow it. Elevating just slightly, pushing my wrist out to preserve my wrist, and then cutting just below where I think that it needs to be, so it gives me plenty of room to bounce back up. If you have a hair, you can always come back in and trim that. I would rather leave it longer than cut too much. So just by kind of encouraging the curls to dance around, I can see that this one actually belongs here. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that lay where it wants to, slightly elevate and shift out that hair and cut that length there. So what are you guys thinking so far? Is this helping? Are you loving it? Again, this is something that's really worked super well for my clientele and myself. We're gonna work through each section, allowing it to fall where it wants to. Instead of working it through with a comb, we're gonna make sure it's soaking wet while we're working with it. So I can start to see that it's starting to dry here. I'm getting this little halo right here with just some separation where it's starting to get some fuzz. So I'm gonna go ahead and re-soak that and then put a little bit more curl restore, and we're gonna finish this fringe. And then I'm gonna show you one of my favorite ways to create a little twist to send your client home or style them before we leave, because you know me guys, even if I didn't get to finish it, you'll see it on my Instagram at Tosh_Mahal. Check out the finished look, but I still wanna give you most bang for your buck for sticking in here with me through this half hour. So I'm taking a little bit of my Lanza Curl Restore. This is part of the curl line. And I'm creating this lotion consistency, really working it through, using the flats of my hands to encourage this curl clumping. Again, I'm working past the flat of the head. So typically when we do any sort of fringe, we want to work, we want to place it on the flat of the head, the comb, and where it begins to lift off is typically where we're going to stop. But with curls, we want to encourage just a little bit more. So I am going deeper on this cut. It's going to create that shape moving forward. We're going to have shape from the side, and then we'll have shape from the back when it's all done. So it's pretty exciting. I love being able to see this shape come to life in a different way than you would with other textures of hair. So I'm going to let this fall forward. I've got her head just slightly tilted so I can really see that natural fall. Again, I would normally cut in front of my section, but because I want you guys to be able to see that slight elevation, that cutting, that beautiful stacking that we're seeing here. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm going to continue to show you a styling technique that has been really good for me and my clients if they're looking for something just a little bit different than maybe a wash and wear look. Again, I'm almost at my half hour, so if you want to see the end result of this cut in the next day or so, I'll make sure that I post it on my Instagram at Tosh_Mahal. And I love that you're loving this customized cutting. Like, honestly, cutting curl by curl has been really successful for me. Again, it takes a little bit more time. If you're not explaining it, it does go pretty quick because, again, look at this beautiful shape. Look at the shape that you're already starting to see. The curls naturally fall when you get this, the Curl Restore. When you use this, it helps with clumping so much, and it makes it super easy. So we can really see that shape coming through, and it makes it easy to where we're gonna go next. So I'm excited for you guys to see the end result of this. But in the meantime, I'm going to walk you through one of my favorite little twists that I like to do on the hair. So we'll just go in this side section here that we're working with. Again, I've already put Curl Restore in all of these sections, so she's got a really good foundation for moisture. The next thing that I want to use is the Healing Curls Curl Whirl. So this Curl Whirl, again, has a lotion-like consistency, a very soft control or hold. But what's important when we're working with curls is that we're coming through section by section. So a lot of times what we want to do is we want to rush it. Like, I'm totally guilty of this, especially when it comes to me wearing my own curly hair. It's like, we're the worst to ourselves. We don't make as much time for ourselves. But I want to just come through and just, okay, like I've scrunched it, I've put a little bit in, but what happens is we start to miss the roots or the base of certain areas. So we want to work that through using flat, not necessarily rakes, but flat hands. So working that through flat and making sure that everything is covered. The next thing that I'm going to come in with is my Curl Flex. So this is a very lightweight controlled gel. What I love about it is it's not sticky. It's one of the only gels that I've ever used that's not sticky, but what it's going to do is it's going to create a cast around these curls to really help with that curl separation and with that definition. So I'm working that through each section, as you've seen me do with all types of different techniques that we've done for cutting here. With our Curl Restore, with our Curl Whirl. I'm going to continue that because it works and it does matter. And then you can get it at the base as well. So it really does make a big difference to go through. And I promise you, it doesn't actually take that much longer. You're going to spend more time trying to reduce the frizz later or control it in a way later than you will actually doing it right from the first place. So I encourage you to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two pieces here. So these naturally want to, we got a little short there. So these want to clump out together and I'm just going to twist it. So I'm using a low projection and I'm just twisting it. It's got my Curl Flex gel on there. That's just going to create a cast. And then I'm going to continue through for each one of these sections. So sometimes you can take it a little bit bolder. Usually it works really well when you do that, but what we're going to do is just encourage a little bit more of a softer curl or a softer curl clumping. So this is something that they can wear overnight if they like. They can let their hair dry naturally. They can sit under a hooded dryer. There's so many different ways that they can encourage this curl to really start to see this pattern. So as you can see, look at that curl clumping that it's creating. And imagine when we cut her little dead ends off, it's going to be amazing. So again, I'm just taking section by section, applying my Curl Whirl and then my gel, and that's going to allow these pieces to really clump super nicely. So this is actually a really good two-piecer here that we have. So I'm just going to take it and I'm going to twist. Again, this is something that you can put them under the dryer. They can go home with damp hair. They can be diffused. They can go to bed. It's a technique that you can show them. And this encourages client retention because if they can do something at home that's as simple as creating a curl that's like valuable to them or something that they feel comfortable in their own skin, you've now created a bond and something that's going to last forever. And again, I mean, it's great to feel beautiful when you leave the salon, but who doesn't want to feel beautiful all the time? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for me, if someone can help me and encourage me to do things on my own that I feel amazing, like I'm just going to feel connected with them. So, whew, that went fast. I'm at my 30 minutes with you guys. So I have walked you through a type of way of cutting. So again, I am going to show you my finished look, but we've already begun this stacking. We've begun this shape. You can see that that weight line is going to gradually begin to shape up here. We're going to work the sides. We're going to follow it through with just that blunt line here at the bottom. And then I'm going to begin the shaping the same exact way that I'm doing the back. And then we even went over some fringe here. So we're working on a bespoke cutting. This is ideal for anyone who has a ton of texture or a ton of curl in their hair. We're working on the curl clumping factor prior to cutting it. The idea is that we're not coming in with a comb to create really straight lines. We want to encourage the curl to come out of the root from how it wants to grow and sit how it wants to grow. And then again, you can see this shape that we're already creating that's so nice. When it starts to shrink up, we're gonna see this beautiful shape. Which is, again, I love doing curly hair because when you're cutting, you just see the shape so naturally. It just wants to fall and you're like, ah. I get so excited. And I know I'm a hair nerd. I'm fine with it. It's good.